Okay, I do just want to start off with a moment of silence because the late and great Queen Elizabeth II has passed away. So I think it is appropriately fitting for a moment of silence before we start tonight's meeting. Okay, thank you. I will declare the meeting now open for business at 7:01, September 12th, regular council meeting. I'll move on. Is there any conflicts of interest tonight, councillors? No. None. Okay, so I will move on. We will temporarily adjourn the council meeting for the purpose of a public meeting. Councillor McDonald, can I get a first?
Yes.
And Councillor Despatie, a second.
Yes.
And moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Despatie, be it resolved that the council meeting be temporarily adjourned at 7:01 for the purpose of a public meeting. All in favor? And that carries. So we have a public meeting for the public hearing application for the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. Roger Laponce and Deborah Duchesne, 161 Highway 17 West, to rezone to permit residential use on subject lot, which is designated highway tourist commercial district. I guess at this point, I will, this is just a motion to officially open that public meeting. So Councillor Gingras first.
Yes.
And Councillor Bourrier second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier, that pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter 13, the public meeting is now officially open for the purposes of hearing comments regarding the following. Official Plan Amendment number 5, Roger Laponce and Deborah Duchesne, File 2. Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Roger Laponce and Deborah Duchesne, File 2. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, I will move now to hear any comments from the public regarding this, and I'll ask the CEO if we've received any written comments, but I'll go to the public first. If there's anyone in attendance that has comments, feel free to speak now.
Hi, my name is Roger Laponce, 161 Highway 17 in the center. I'm here speaking on behalf of my wife and I, speak to council, hoping that we can rezone this as residential, because we definitely want to turn this into a beautiful, beautiful home. It's the place has so much character, and we know by the time we're done with this home, Nairn Center will be very proud of the fact that they did rezone residential and make a beautiful home on it. So on that, leave it in your hands and hope that council sees in our favor. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask if there's any other comments from the public. Not seeing anything, so I will turn to the CAO and I'll ask her if there is any comments from written comments that the office received.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have received one written comment from the law office of Julia. I apologize if I say it wrong. Rodinova. It's objection regarding notice of complete application and public meeting concerning a proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, file number 2. It states the legal address that is noted. It says our office represents Mr. Akeem Kubler, the owner of the adjoining parcels to the south of the above property. These lands are legally described as Lot 5, Block L, Parcel M33, Nairn, Township of Nairn and Hyman, and Lot 16, Block L, parcel M33 Nairn, Township of Nairn and Hyman, and the municipal known address as Smith Street, Nairn Center, Ontario, POP 2LO. These parcels are zoned for commercial use. Mr. Kubler bought these parcels on May 6, 2022 in order to develop them for commercial use as allowed by the current zoning. The proposed plan to allow residential use of the adjoining land will significantly prejudice Mr. Kubler's rights to use the land that he purchased as allowed under current zoning bylaws and to develop it as intended. Residential use of the adjoining land will alter the setback requirements on Mr. Kubler's land to 1.5 meters and interior yard requirements to 7.5 meters from each side pursuant to section 5.7.3 of municipal bylaw 2013-5. As a result, Mr. Kubler will not be able to proceed with intended commercial development. Mr. Kubler and our office are asking for the application for special use of the property as residential to be declined due to significant interference with adjoining property owners' rights existent under current zoning. Our office and Mr. Kubler will be happy to provide further information upon request. And that's from Yulia Radonova, barrister and solicitor. That was the only written comment received, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. For the purpose of the public meeting, this is just a motion to accept the planning memorandum from our planners, J.L. Richards. So Councillor Despatie, can I get a first on that? And Councillor McDonald, a second?
Yes.
So that's moved by Councillor Despatie, seconded by Councillor McDonald. The council notes the planning memorandum prepared by J.L. Richards and Associates regarding the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment 161 Highway 17 West Nairn Center. All in favor? And that carries. So councillors, we will have time to discuss this once the public meeting is closed, but this is just to close the public meeting. So Councillor, unless there's any other comments.
Right, our planner would like to make a presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. So I think Sarah Barreau's in attendance. There she is.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if you wanted it now during the public meeting or during the report, so this is fine. Yeah, so I was just going to give maybe a brief overview, kind of synopsis of our report and recommendation, and then also I can provide a comment in response to the letter that Belinda just read out from the neighboring property owner. We've had the opportunity to speak about their comment today and have a revised recommendation for you to reflect that. So the application, as we all know, is for the property located at 171 Highway 17 West in Nairn Center. It's located on the south side of Highway 17 and has frontage both on Highway 17 and on Smith Street. And it's approximately 3.4 hectares in area and is bounded by Highway 17, Smith Street, as well as vacant lands to the east and to the south. There is an existing building on the site that was formerly used for commercial purposes, though it hasn't been used for several years, approximately 8 years or so. I believe the property has been vacant. The surrounding area is characterized by vacant lands and a mix of residential and commercial development along Highway 17. The applications that are in front of you today are for an official plan amendment to permit residential uses. And the applicants have applied to rezone the lands from C, tourist and highway commercial, to general residential R1. And I am just going to touch upon that because that is different from our recommendation before you tonight. We have reviewed the application in light of relevant policies, so the provincial policy statement, as well as the growth plan for Northern Ontario. We do feel that the application is consistent with the PPS and does not conflict with the growth plan. With respect to the official plan for the township, the official plan notes that Highway 17 serves as the main commercial street for the village and therefore designates some of these lands on the south side of the highway as highway and tourist commercial. because of the importance of maintaining commercial lands, we're recommending to keep the highway and tourist commercial designation, but to allow for this proposed additional use. We do feel that this makes use of an existing underutilized property and building, as I noted, has been, and as we all know, it has been vacant for several years. But the intention to keep that commercial designation will allow for potential future commercial development of the property. So it's not going to take away the permissions for future commercial use. We do feel that otherwise the application conforms to the official plan for the township. It's in your settlement area. It is on existing municipal services. It has access from a local road. It will provide housing opportunities. And by maintaining the commercial designation, so that overall designation, it'll allow for future potential commercial use. Similarly, with respect to the zoning bylaw, we are recommending that the lands be rezoned from highway and tourist commercial C zone to the highway and tourist commercial exception zone. So essentially, it's going to maintain the C zone and all of the permitted uses and the provisions of the C zone, but we'll also add in the permitted use for a residential dwelling. So essentially, if someone was to redevelop the property in years to come, they would still have those commercial permitted uses, and we do feel that that is important. There is also an exception to recognize the separation distance between existing buildings on the property. So overall, we are recommending approval. We do feel it's consistent with the PPS, the growth plan, and otherwise conforms to the township's official plan. With respect to the letter that was read out by Belinda from the neighboring property owner. So again, we had the opportunity to discuss their concerns today and took a look at that property to the south. So I believe it is essentially 2 lots on a former plan of subdivision. So they're approximately 15.5 meters wide. And the zoning bylaw, as they've noted, it does contain provisions in the commercial zone for increased setbacks to a residential zone or residential use. So by, if council chooses to approve the amending bylaw today, it would impact the property to the south by imposing increased setbacks, as they have noted. This was unforeseen and is not intentional to further impact that property to the south. It wasn't the intention of the amendment. So by them bringing that forward, what we have done is we've prepared a revised resolution and a revised amending bylaw that I believe council has before them. And essentially it says that the 7.5 meter setback, so the increased setback to a residential use, would not apply to those 2 specific properties to the south of the subject lands. We do feel comfortable recommending that for approval. Again, noting this is supposed to be commercial area. There may be future commercial uses on the subject lands, and given the configuration of those lands to the south as well. So we would recommend that revised amendment to be considered for council's approval tonight. I can certainly answer any questions you may have as well.
Councillor Despatie.
I think I know which lots will be negatively affected, but they're not indicated on this diagram, and I certainly would like to make 100% sure about the properties that are negatively affected. So if somebody could show me which one it is.
Yeah. I think there's actually, I don't think those are the correct lots that are indicated on that, on that schedule either.
No,
So we should amend that as well.
yeah, I just looked at that actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be these
These-
2 right here.
Oh, see, I thought
Yeah.
they were gonna be these.
Yeah,
two.
no, these 2.
All right,
Okay.
Yeah, so
I'm glad I got the
essentially
clarification.
the subject lands are these 6 lots here that we're considering for rezoning. And these are the 2 right lands. It's their letter that was received.
So actually we have to amend this area.
So by making it residential, it'll still be
Yeah.
more or less commercial also. More or less.
we're recommending adding a permitted use to allow a residential use, but the overall zone is still going to be recommended to be commercial.
But what these people now are gonna build on, they'll be allowed to have residential there.
That is correct.
Your taxes.
Councillor Gingras, I think you had your hand up. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a question for Sarah. I'm not sure, though. Of course, I support the residential zoning, and I'm glad we made the amendment to suffice the objection to it. My question is, and I guess it's really on behalf of the residents. So one of the reasons is to pay lower taxes. So if it's zoned commercial, well, if it's zoned C1, which is the exception, how can we ensure that their taxes will be pure residential and have no commercial impact on the fee? Like, because I believe, and I could ask the CAO, when we do our budget, at the end of our budget, we get examples of properties and how the new budget would look. So for each, like there's an industrial formula, there's a commercial formula, there's a residential formula, and each one of them pays a different rate based on their assessment. So how can we ensure that their rate will be a residential rate and that that commercial attachment for future use won't affect that?
So I can start to provide a response and then I might defer to the CAO as well. So with respect to taxes, that's kind of a MPAC makes an assessment determining what's the use of the property, how big is it, how many bathrooms, if it's a house, or what are the fixtures like. And they determine the property assessment value and as well as the code based on the type of use. So if it's residential, is it a single, a semi, apartments, etc. They have a different code value assigned to each of those things.
Excuse me, sorry, Sarah, is that based on zoning or is that based on what they see?
Based on use. So what
On what
say.
they see,
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, because there are many situations across the province where someone may have a zone, a commercial zone, and they have a house in it, and whether it's been there forever and the property might have gotten rezoned. So there are many situations where zoning may not impact line up with use. So the MPAC will assign a property assessment, will determine what property code that is. As I mentioned, the property may currently be assessed as commercial because that was the last use of this property. So it may currently be assessed that way. But when the building is converted to residential, then I believe MPAC should be notified to indicate this is now a residential use. We would like to be assessed accordingly. And then that would be coordinated, I believe, with the municipality in terms of determining which tax rate applies. And I would maybe defer to Belinda on that because I'm not familiar with the tax rates that you have and if they relate to zoning or MPAC's code and the use.
Yes, if that's okay, I can speak to that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're correct. It is based on use. It's not based on zoning. So currently that property is being taxed commercial. As you said, that was the last use. So once council has made this decision and the appeal period's over, the resident can certainly come to the municipality or to MPAC directly. It doesn't matter, and request for reconsideration and show them the documents of council's decision. And I can't always say 100% that that's the decision that they're gonna make to change it, but I've never seen them argue against a resident's use. So, and obviously if things didn't go that way, there's ways to come to council and request council support with MPAC if that's needed, but I wouldn't believe it would ever be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more quick question, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Belinda. once we've rezoned, okay, saying that we're going to rezone, if we do rezone it to the residential use, wouldn't we, as a township, with that being one of our residents, indicate that to MPAC when we make a change like that? Like, is that our protocol or policy? Like, when we make a zoning change, we let MPAC know, or, sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a very good question. In all my time here, the resident has applied,
Oh,
but we can certainly assist in that. We can help provide documents. We have contacts there, and we can certainly assist the resident in that process.
okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor McDonald, I think you had, yeah.
You to CEO. Now that with an NPAC there, isn't it, don't they look at our building permits and that to validate properties? So wouldn't they get, if these people get building permits, wouldn't they look at that at that time?
May I, through you,
Yeah,
Mr.
go
Chair?
ahead.
Yes, that's one, certainly that's one switch that would have impact look at that. However, it may be a little confusing if they're waiting just for the building permit to decide that the use has changed. So it would be my recommendation that the resident, as soon as the appeals period's over and there's no appeals, that they would apply directly to MPAC and request that change.
Councillor Despatie.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to make a personal observation from personal experience. When I had some issues with my property, I took the incentive of contacting Impact and speaking with the person in charge of this area, and they assisted me in, it wasn't rezoning, but it was an issue that needed to be addressed by Impact, but it's up to the property owner to deal with Impact. We can help as a community, but community government, but it's up to them to take the steps.
Councillor Bourrier.
May I ask how long the appeals process lasts? Like, how long do they have to wait?
CAO.
I may have to defer to Sarah on that one. I believe it's 20 days, but I'll just get her to confirm that.
Yes, so through the mayor to the councillor. So after the decision is made, the township has 15 days to provide notice of the decision. So that's the time period. And then on the date of the notice, there is a 20-day appeal period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess, is there any comments or questions left for Sarah, or if Sarah, if you have anything left for us?
I think I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So we do have a couple of options in front of us once we get out of the public meeting, but this resolution is just to go back to the regular council meeting. So Councillor Bourrier, can I get a first? And Councillor Gingras?
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Bourrier, second by Councillor Gingras, resolved that the public meeting is now officially closed at 7:24 p.m. and the regular council meeting is now reconvened. All in favor? That carries. So now I do have a few of the options in front of us for the zoning. So I have option one is to pass the amendments, and that is not, this option does not talk about the setback to the neighboring property. Option two decides that the setback would not be required. And option three is to defer the decision until next meeting. I think through our conversation, I'll open it up to the floor, but I think council is looking, from my understanding, is looking to pass it without affecting the neighboring property. I might be mistaken, but I'll open it up to the floor if anyone has comments. Councillor Despatie.
I will comment that we paid one engineer or planner at one time or another to zone this commercial. And we paid a lot of money. And we're probably paying Jail Richards for their report here. And they recommend that we accept the rezoning to allow residential. And this exception not to negatively affect the other properties. So I'm prepared. Don't let these people wait another month for another meeting. I'm prepared to move that we accept the, I guess it's number 2.
Okay. Is there any other comments on that, or Councillor Gingras?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I support Councillor J. Petty's view that the planner recommends that we go ahead with this, and also the section to not infringe on the southern property must be in.
Okay,
Thank you.
is there any other comments on that, or we can go right to the motion?
I agree with the two councilors.
Okay, so Councillor Despatie, can I get a move on that? And Councillor Gingras, a second?
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Despatie, second by Councillor Gingras. And this was a long one, so bear with me. Whereas council has received applications for an official plan amendment and related to zoning bylaw amendment file 2 for the property legally described as firstly LT2 BLK PLM 33 Nairn excerpt LT 892269. Secondly, LT 3417 and 18 BLK L PLM 33 Nairn, and thirdly LT 19 block parcel M33 Nairn excerpt LT 89268 and LT 89269, and fourthly PT Lane BLK L Nairn PT 133 53 R 2072 Township of Nairn and Hyman, officially known as 161 Highway West, Highway 17 West. And whereas the planning report dated September 6th, prepared by the Township's planner, J.L. Richards and Associates Limited, indicates the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for Northern Ontario, and otherwise conform to the Township's official plan. And whereas a public meeting was held by the Council of the Township of Nairn and Hyman regarding the applications on September 12th, 2022. And whereas council has considered the public input received. Therefore, be it resolved, council approves the official plan amendment number 5, which will permit a single detached dwelling on subject lot, and that council enacts a bylaw to rezone the lands from highway and tourist commercial to highway tourist and commercial exception 1 C1 to permit a single detached dwelling on the subject lot and reduce the minimum separation distance from the existing principal building and garage detached garage from 1.5 to 1 meters. And that the amending bylaw further amend section 5.7.3 to add a subsection D to not require a 7.5 meter setback abutting the residential use to the north section C for the property directly to the south of the subject lands. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign zoning bylaw amendment and the official plan amendment number 5. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, so that's it for the public meeting. I will now move on to delegations. Yeah.
I just want to note that on the bylaws, when we get to that section, we just have to amend the diagrams. There was just a mistake in which lots were highlighted. So I've made the adjustments on my copies, and if council wishes, I can show them to them when we get there, but I just wanted that.
Okay, sounds good. So now delegations, I think Roger, if you have anything else, you are under the delegations if you want to speak again, but if you've had your speaking time, then that's good. Good. Okay.
Crystal, thank you very much.
So now we have 4B, Imad Alvi, PSD Citywide Incorporated Asset Management Consultant to provide an update to the council regarding the township's asset management plan. So I'll turn it over to you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the introduction and good evening, councilors. Happy to join you today. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully presentation's up.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulties here.
No problem. It's a Monday. It happens.
There we go. It's not allowing you to share. Sorry, Emma.
That's
Let me
okay.
try one more thing here.
Oh, I just got it. Perfect. Okay, hopefully you can all see my screen. So I'll share it right now. Okay, hopefully, perfect. Okay. All right, through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you again for the introduction and good evening, councilors. Happy to be here. My name is Imad Alvi and I'm an asset management advisor with PSD Citywide. And for the past couple of months, I've been working with township staff in developing the asset management plan. And I'm pleased to give you an update today and share with you some of the final statistics, key statistics that we've been able to finalize and give you an update on the overall AMP as it stands, hoping that it is delivered to you soon and we can go through it in detail then. But for today, I wanted to give the overall project background, share some of the key statistics with you, and go through the key recommendations that we've outlined in the AMP, which you will see when it is completed and delivered to you. So I'll move along here. So before I kind of dive into asset management, I did want to give a big shout out to township staff, Belinda and Derek in particular, for being so patient and cooperative with me and for working on the AMP, as well as developing a robust asset inventory. We'll dive into that in a second, but anyway, so the key primary deliver for this project was the asset management plan, which is 2024 compliant. It is compliant to the 2024 requirement of OREG, which we will dive into as well. But beyond the development of the asset management plan, we did host supporting workshops covering data refinement, the development of risk frameworks and risk models, as well as documenting lifecycle strategies, and then developing levels of service for your non-core assets, as well as levels of service and the metrics associated for core assets as required under the OREG regulation. Again, it's not just the development of the AMP for this particular project what we did. A lot of it is also bringing in the central asset inventory for the township into an environment that has functionality for township staff to use the tools to accelerate in budgeting and planning, to identify high-risk assets, to revise and improve on lifecycle strategies that the township is currently conducting and employing. So really, really nice project with the hope of using the database going forward. Before all of that, I'll take a step back and I'll just kind of give everybody a quick background on the need for asset management. Most of you have, I should say all of you have probably heard this already. But again, as we all know, infrastructure assets are vital for communities to thrive. And we need a meaningful way to organize what we own. We need a way to understand what services we provide and we need a way to ensure accountability to our residents and stakeholders for the services they use. Those three key concepts brought about the need for asset management. And a quick context, across Canada, you'll see that in the 2019 Canadian Infrastructure Report Card, what was found was that a large proportion of municipal infrastructure was in fair condition, and that the majority of municipal infrastructure was more than 20 years old, with stormwater being the most unknown. So you'll see that the drive behind asset management primarily is the need to address infrastructure demand. And in comparison to the national asset portfolio, the overall portfolio, as you see there on the screen, and then you'll see the township's asset portfolio, overall asset portfolio, and the kind of condition ratings there. It's a lot of it is similar. So just like other municipalities across the country, the township is facing the same issues: aging infrastructure, climate change and extreme weather events, general market trends as we've seen them over the past couple of months and the past year, and of course, limited funding. So with that context in mind, I just want to give the exact definition of asset management, which is, according to ISO 55000, the coordinated activity of an organization to realize value from an asset. So the three high-level parameters that provide that or make us realize the value would be the cost, the performance, and the risk. And all three are covered in the A&P. And all three, as part of our project with the township, has been to develop the tools and use the database that has now been set up to address those three key areas. That's not to say the township does not have any history with asset management. You'll see in 2019, there was the strategic asset management policy that was completed, and the initial A&P that was done in, I believe, 2013, and then was updated in 2016. And then finally, the A&P that you see or will see this year, which is the 2022 A&P. And the reason behind all of this and the push for getting A&Ps out for most municipalities has been the Ontario Regulation 58817, which is split into three key areas with three key timelines. So first up, I apologize. First up is the asset management policy, which was in 2019. This year was the requirement for an A&P that covers core assets. So core assets are your, according to OREG, are bridges and culverts, roads, water, linear, sanitary linear, storm linear. And your non-core assets are your buildings and facilities, machinery and equipment, and vehicles. So as part of our project, we took it a step further. We wanted to cover and get compliant with 2024. So as of now, or I should say when the A&P is completed and sent and approved, we will be compliant to 2024 requirements. You'll see the list there for the core assets, where the six kind of key requirements are a current levels of service overview, and inventory analysis, life cycle activities to sustain the current level of service, the cost of life cycle activities, and a discussion on population and employment forecasts, and a discussion of growth impacts. Those six key requirements must be in the A&P or in the A&P. And then for the 2024 requirement, the requirement still stands. So those six still apply to 2024, but this time the scope is now expanded to cover non-core assets. So we are currently, hopefully with the development of the A&P, should be compliant to 2024. Come 2025, that's when things will get really interesting. We're now required, or we will be required, to develop proposed levels of service for the next 10 years based on the KPIs and levels of service that we've collected for 2022 and 2024, or the next couple of years. We will also require an updated inventory analysis, a robust lifecycle management strategy, as well as a financial strategy to address the shortfalls, and a discussion of how growth assumptions are impacting lifecycle and financial strategy. So if I can put my spin on this, the idea there would be the 2022 and the 2024 are our initial versions or initial attempts to understand how to use levels of service, how to set up the database and the inventory for a municipality so that 2025 they can develop and define proposed levels of service based on the previous KPIs and the previous metrics, and then a more robust A&P. So what is required after 2025? Well, asset management plans must be updated at least once every 5 years, according to OREG 588. And every municipal council shall conduct an annual review of its asset management progress on or before July 1st. And the asset management policy and plan should be posted on the municipal website. I think in the township's case, both the previous plan as well as the policy are posted. So that's a nice check. But for the other 2 points there, we're required that every 5 years the A&Ps be updated, and that every year council conduct a review of its progress on or before July 1st. So that covers the context, that covers the need for asset management, and then the regulation that supports that need. Let's dive into some of the specifics on the township's kind of state of the infrastructure, what process improvements we can do to increase confidence in analysis and decision making, and what the municipality's financial capacity is to meet long-term capital requirements. I should also mention that the inventory analysis and the basis of the A&P has been on the inventory as of the end of 2021. And we'll move along to total replacement costs. So overall costing comes out to be about 65.2 million for the entire asset portfolio. That covers your road network, your water network, buildings and facilities, vehicles and machinery and equipment. So putting that into the cost per household, you're looking at about 407,253 per household. The overall condition of the asset portfolio is at 61%, which is rated as good in our condition rating scale. And you can see there in the graph that for the most part, most of the infrastructure is in good shape, obviously apart from machinery and equipment, which you can see there, which is not uncommon. A lot of in our experience, as we've been developing A&Ps for other municipalities, these non-core assets are usually the ones that are at a very poor. So it's not a surprise that you'll see machinery and equipment and vehicles be at a poor to very poor. As part of our project and as part of our work with the township, we've also documented, oh, that's weird. I thought the marks would be there. Oh, I apologize. It is animated. So as part of our work with the township, we were able to document the life cycle strategies for your roads, high-level life cycle strategies for your non-core assets, as well as a life cycle strategy for your linear water assets. So what that means basically is we had several workshops with staff where we documented exactly what they do right now, developed models that were then built into our citywide asset management software, and then we could run reports comparing the benefits of different scenarios, develop and optimize additional scenarios, additional strategies. So you'll see there as an example, the benefit of having a formalized strategy. It really allows you to visualize the benefit of doing the right thing at the right time. As an example there, we have asphalt roads where if we are to do nothing to them, they would deteriorate within 25 years and they would cost us about $918,000 annually. But with the activities that the township staff are currently conducting and doing, we're able to have a cost benefit of about $392,000 based on the life cycle activities that we do and their impact. Similarly, we also develop risk models. So the equation that I give there, high level, is risk is equal to the probability of failure multiplied by the consequence of failure. So much like the life cycle model, we went ahead and had workshops with staff where we identified critical data points that would help us in determining the probability of failure for an asset. So in this case, we used asset condition, service life remaining, and then for consequence of failure, we used replacement cost, the actual asset type. For roads, it was a little bit more advanced because there was additional attribute data, but for the other assets, these were the parameters and data points that were used. So with that risk framework developed, the citywide asset management software allows you to run a risk report, which generates a risk matrix for you. And you can see there, it's already identifying high risk assets right away that you can then click on, identify, and address them appropriately. So the key point here would be a good risk model will assist in prioritizing resources and applying them to the right asset at the right time. Having this risk model will allow you to identify that high risk asset and take the appropriate action. In our kind of jargon, we say it's just operationalizing the risk. So you'll see there just the same kind of risk matrix, which on the the associated activities on top of them. So you'll see those assets that are at a high risk or pose serious concern for the township would be immediate action would be required, whether that's an inspection, rehabilitation, or an outright replacement. Those that are low consequence of failure and low probability of failure would just require routine monitoring, while the ones that are of high consequence, if they were to fail but have a low probability of failing, would just be more monitor and predict as they happen. Proactive management, would just be preventative maintenance and monitoring. So those are some of the AM strategies that we've now documented and formalized into the citywide software. And of course, they will be included in the asset management plan for each category as we go through it. And then with all of this in mind, with all the data consolidation that we've done, bringing in costing information, consolidating as much critical data as possible. And then in the township's case, we were able to bring in condition assessments from staff. So using that to paint a better picture, get a more accurate result, leads us to then forecasting and planning. So what you see there on the screen is your 10-year forecast coming directly from the citywide inventory based on the citywide assets, and then any updates that we have done since then. So you'll see the 10-year forecast, which basically amounts and the system calculates as needing an average requirement of 1.6 or $1.7 million annually to keep or meet the infrastructure demands as they are. Of course, the benefit of having a software then allows you to generate longer term forecasts. So we also generated a longer term forecast of about 63 years. And this forecast was used primarily because it covers each asset goes through one full replacement in this forecast. So we usually do a longer term forecast to highlight and usually answers the question of why we need $1.7 million, because the software calculates it at the asset level and then aggregates that on top towards the segments and categories. So there's your 63-year kind of forecast. Again, the annual requirement across, whether it's a 10-year or 63-year, will still be 1.6 or 1.7, which takes us to the actual addressing the infrastructure deficit. So for tax funded assets, the annual capital requirement was 1.5. And for rate funded assets, it was about 182 or 183,000. The funding that was available, the total then required, like I mentioned before, is 1.6 or $1.7 million annually. The funding that is available, we're currently looking at is about a 490,000. So that leaves us with an annual capital deficit of about $1.2 million annually. So put it in other terms, the assets are currently being funded at 29% of their long-term capital requirements. Again, not much of a surprise, as it's common and consistent across almost all the municipalities. Almost all of the municipalities we've worked with have some sort of infrastructure deficit. So it's not a surprise. But to address this deficit, we have put together a financial strategy that will be included in the asset management plan. So the two key kind of requirements that we did, before I put the annual rate change and the total rate change up on the screen there, would be that we used sustainable and one-time grant transfers to be an essential source of revenue for investment. So those were considered, and then adjustments to taxes as based on the rate changes that we've recommended should be supplemented with project prioritization and evaluation of desired levels of service. One other thing I want to mention before we kind of look at the numbers there would just be that this is it's a recommendation based on the current data that is available. So it is by no means a hard push or a hard recommendation. It is based on the most recent data that was available to us, and so it could change as costing changes or as new data comes to light. But for our financial strategy to address the shortfalls, we've suggested a 20-year phase-in for tax-funded assets. So the total tax rate change required for tax-funded assets is about 106%. So annually, that's about 4.1 over the next 20 years, annual increase. And then for rate-funded assets, we're looking at a 15-year phase-in to cover the total tax rate change of about 27%. So that would be 1.2% over the next 15 years. And which takes us to the recommendations and next steps. So these are high-level recommendations that will be included in the AMP. We've also included additional recommendations for each particular asset category. It's critical now that we are, or we will be compliant to the 2024 piece of the OREG regulation, that we take the time to improve on the data as much as we can. So the first point there is to continue to review, update, and refine the asset inventory in consultation with internal departments or stakeholders. So the three key smaller bullets there being to implement a portfolio-wide data governance strategy to ensure that there is confidence in the inventory data and it is accurate and reliable. The second is to conduct an asset management needs assessment to identify resources and investment required. Third is more kind of supplementary to the other two, is to provide staff and or council training opportunities to ensure asset management principles are understood. The second recommendation there, or key recommendation, is to prepare for the OREG 2025 requirements. We've been fortunate to cover the 2024. 2025, like I mentioned before, will be a little bit more interesting / challenging. So the point there would be to identify your proposed levels of service once you've done a year or 2 years of recording the current KPIs, and then to develop a medium to long-term external communication strategy to engage the public on asset management and obtain feedback to inform development of proposed levels of service. Third, and lastly, is the continuous improvement and regular review. We reiterate this quite a bit in the AMP, but an asset management plan is a living document, should be updated regularly to inform long-term planning. And the last point there is to continue to operationalize the asset management database through its functionality. We have, as part of our project, training at the end of this when the AMP is completed that we will give to staff, in the hopes that it continues to be used to be operationalized, meaning whether it's running reports on forecasting, running reports on risk, getting an overview of your condition of a particular asset category or an asset segment. All those things will help you in decision making and forecasting better. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions and talk about next steps.
Right, thank you. Thanks so much for that. And I'll just ask council if there's any questions. Councillor Gingras.
Yes, Mr. Chair. My question is, thank you for the presentation very much. My question is, I guess it's maybe page 17, probably, the annual capital requirement and infrastructure deficit. Our deficit is running around 1.1 million in total. And I heard you say that that's not bad, or that's kind of good. And I was wondering, do you mean in the grand scheme of other municipalities? What I'm concerned about is when we go to apply for a grant or we go to do something, is that number going to hinder us?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. That was a great question. To your first point, I don't think it's going to hinder anything really. I meant in the grand scheme of things that it is pretty consistent to what we've seen with other municipalities, in that almost or all the municipalities are facing an infrastructure deficit. In fact, I'd say it's more of I don't want to say it's a plus, but the fact that we are at this stage of acknowledging the deficit, we have the information and the data ready to present to when we're applying for grants or applying for funding. We'll just make it better because it'll highlight the need for the grant or the funding to be accepted. So yeah, in the grand scheme of things, that's the point it's trying to get across.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Councillor McDonald.
Yes, I was on council when we first got the first plan there, and it was very interested because everything was laid out, how many kilometers the street is, or how long it is and how much it costs. But when you take the costs that you put out there, and then you get an engineer to do it, and then you get a contractor, none of the numbers come close to each other. So what is the good, this plan, what does it help us to do? Because we still got to get an engineer. and tell us how much it's gonna cost. Now, and your youth people not cheap, you know, and the engineer's not cheap. And to me, we're paying 2 or 3 times where we should only be paying once for an engineer or something. I don't know how you can comment on that, if it even makes sense, but.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks again. Thank you, Councillor. Again, great question. I will say your point is completely valid. In our development of the AMP, and you'll see the AMP, what we do cover is the source of where we get our costing from. And I agree with you that you'll see different bids and different amounts being suggested. What we've tried to cover in this AMP is at least the base cost that you need. So you have a benchmark to work towards. So at the very least, you should be aiming for the amount there. Of course, it's, you know, the amounts might be different with different vendors and different contractors and all that, and different engineers, but our purpose is to at least highlight and visualize the need, the basic amount or the most minimum amount needed to at least maintain or cover the infrastructure deficit. So I hope that answers your question. The AMP will cover and will provide sources on where we got the costing from exactly. In a lot of cases, it was inflated because there was just a lack of availability for current market costing. So where possible, we use market costing, but usually a lot of it was inflated based on prior unit costing. So yeah, that is a really good question, and we continue to kind of address that.
But as a council now, and the Public Works, we work together with Public Works. They tell us what roads they want to fix and out there, but what I'm trying to say is that we're paying 2 or 3 times where we should only get an engineer to do it. You know, we pay you, well, I think the first time was $20,000 to do it. And then we had a review one, and now we have another one, and then you want us to review it every 5 years. You know, that's money cost that we're gonna have to pay to get an engineer anyway. Like our superintendent, he gets an engineer to engineer a road. And that's what we go by, the engineering remarks, not what's in that book. I used to look at your plan steady, and it don't seem to match everything, so I kind of put it away. But I mean, you might have something there. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So again, completely valid points. Our goal our goal is to set the township up so that you don't need to use us anymore, that the tools are there at your disposal and you can plan and forecast there. So yeah, ultimately there will be some cost benefit there, but your point stands and it's valid.
Councillor Bourrier, I think you had your hand up. Yeah.
My question is basically the tax funded assets on page 18. Is that saying that we need to increase our taxes, residential taxes by 4.1% a year for 20 years?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, essentially, Councillor, yes, but it's a high level recommendation. Doesn't dive specifically into whether it should be for commercial rate increases or residential. It's just at a high level to give you an idea on how much is really needed to address the deficit. And we reiterate that quite a bit in the AMP also, that it is a strategy, if I can just kind of be more specific, for the current requirement, according to the OREG regulation, a financial strategy is not required. But we wanted to just highlight that, include that into the AMP, as we do with other AMPs, just to get everybody on the same page and understanding where the deficit is and how much is really needed. But yeah, it's not explicit recommendation. It's just been a high level strategy that we've developed.
Thank you.
Councillor Despatie?
That was my exact question. Listen, I voted this year to increase the taxes so we could have a surplus and worry at all. I'm very happy that we did that because those numbers are a little bit scary. At 4.1% per year for 20 years. Having said that, yeah, I think we did a good job this spring or this summer And thank you for your report. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Awesome. And now I have lost view of the council chambers, so I'm not sure, Belinda, if you guys can still see me, but I've lost the view of you guys.
Yeah, we can
Just
see
1
you.
second, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
None of us.
No
have
worries.
Won't even connect. Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't have any video yet, but I can hear you.
Let's move.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so we've had to bypass the owl. Unfortunately,
Okay.
it's not. I'm gonna try to turn on the laptop's camera so you can hopefully see something.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'm gonna move you to the front as far
Okay.
as I can. Um, Sorry, it's not catching council very good.
It's all good. I guess I could just ask you
Sure.
if it's in favor, if anyone has any questions, we can just go from there.
I apologize.
No, it's all good. I understand. It's technological issues sometimes. It's all good. So I guess if anyone has any more questions for Imad.
It's just this one, yeah.
No more questions.
Okay.
One has it.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks again on behalf of council, and yeah, I look forward to reading over all the rest of it. So
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one last point, if I can make it before I go. Once the AMP is completed and it's sent, and you've had a chance to review it, I'm happy to come back and take any questions. I'm glad we did this approach first because we'll have more time for questions as you go through the document. So happy to come back once you've had the AMP and I've had a chance to review it and go through it. Thanks. Thank you again. Thanks.
awesome, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so we now have the rest of our delegations. They're only in attendance tonight, I believe. If there is any questions later on when we're discussing the RFPs for Integrity Commissioner, but I'll move to number 5 right now if there's any discussions arising from previous minutes. Don't hear any, so we'll go to number 6, approval of regular council minutes. Councillor Gingras, can I get a first?
Yes.
And Councillor Bourrier, a second?
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier, be it resolved that the following council minutes be accepted as presented. A, regular council meeting minutes, July 11th, 2022, and B, special council meeting minutes, August 18th, 2022. All in favor? I assume that's all yes.
Yes.
And that carries. Okay, now moving on to minutes and reports. This is just to accept the minutes and reports as being received. So Councillor Despatie first. Councillor McDonald, the second.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Despatie, second by Councillor McDonald, resolved that minutes and reports 7B to M are noted as received. Opening minutes for RFP Integrity Commissioner Services, August 31st, 2022. CEO's report number 2022-30, RFP submissions for Integrity Commissioner Services. D, CAO's report number 2022-31, municipal election advanced voting day. E, CEO's report number 2022-32, update on the next generation 911 authority service agreement with Bell Canada. F, CEO's report number 2022-33, update request for quotation engineer services for the McDonald Street reconstruction. G, CEO's report number 2022-34 regarding recycling depot. H, municipal superintendent's report to council September 8th, 2022. I, Township of Nairn and Hyman's April 2022 bank reconciliation. J, Township of Nairn and Hyman's summary of tax write-offs, August 3rd, 2022. K, Community Parks and Recreation minutes, July 25th, 2022. L, Ontario Clean Water Agency, June 2022 work order summary report. And M, Recreation Committee Town Council report. All in favor?
Yes.
Awesome, carried. And so we'll now move on. I'm just going to go down the list because there is a few motions attached to most of these. So 7B, opening minutes for RFP Integrity Commissioner Services. Like I said, there is, I believe, 2 of the integrity commissioners that had put a proposal in on the line here. If there's any questions or if there's any comments or questions to the CEO from council, I'll open it up now.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I loved the report. It was so concise. It was so easy to read. It was so easy for me to see the 3 candidates and have all their information. Thank you for that, Belinda. My question was going to be to Mr. Probity, Chris Ray, Mr. Probity, Integrity Services. Is he on with us, Mr. Chair? Sorry.
He is, yeah.
Okay, and so through you, Mr. Chair, my question is, the other 2 candidates are both lawyers, and so they are members of the Ontario Bar, like the Lawyers Association. And so everyone probably knows how I feel, but I feel like that is the oversight for integrity commissioners. Because if you're a lawyer and you're an integrity commissioner, you will hold your integrity through that bar exam that you passed and don't want to hurt. So my question is for Mr. Ray, and what are his thoughts on integrity commissioner oversight? Because that's a big thing for me. I just found as we went through our investigations here, if we felt something was askew as an investigated person, I had no recourse. There's no oversight. And so when I see lawyers applying, I like that because their oversight is that bar. So I'm wondering the thoughts of Mr. Ray on how he feels about integrity commissioner oversight.
Go ahead, Mr. A, if you want to answer. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so there is no current oversight on any integrity commissioner, notwithstanding whether they're a legal counsel or otherwise. And that has been probably, as you know, a bit of a consternation within the sector because there are folks who don't represent the position as integrity commissioner as they should, perhaps. You know, if somebody is not happy with an investigation for various reasons, they can appeal to the Ombudsman of Ontario, and the Ombudsman will look at that. I am not aware of any situations where the Ombudsman actually inserted themselves into an investigation and tried to overturn it or that type of thing. Mr. Abrams maybe he travels in different circles than I do, and he's an excellent individual. But I would say that just because somebody's a lawyer, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're an exceptional integrity commissioner. I do agree that from a legal perspective, if you had a problem with a lawyer who was your integrity commissioner, you do have an avenue to go to the Law Society and file a complaint. And I am aware that that's been done in the past for some lawyers as well. I don't know what the outcome was. So I don't really see a distinction between somebody that is a lawyer or somebody that is not a lawyer and has experience in the municipal sector. Having said that, I would also agree that lawyers, through their training, have a certain amount of expertise that somebody that is, I'll call it a layperson, or somebody that's been within the sector for a number of years may not have. So I do agree with you on that. The jury is out on whether lawyers make better integrity commissioners than lay people. So I'll just end it right there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ray. I appreciate your answer and your response. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, no problem. Is there any other comments, questions on this? CEO's report outlined it pretty well, so I'm not sure if there's any other comments.
I haven't.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess if there is none, I do have a blank motion here, so I guess I'll ask council if we do have a few proposals here, so I'll ask council what their feeling is towards the CEO's recommendation.
Well, if I may, yeah, I trust in our CAO, and I'll take her recommendation.
I will also.
I agree with my fellow councilors. Also, I'd just like to say that the application was very thorough, very detailed, and was above and beyond, and I really appreciated the work put into that.
And I agree, Mr. Chair, with all my colleagues on the CAO's recommendation.
Okay, I'm just filling in the motion here, and I will read it out. Okay, Councillor Gingras, will you move that?
Yes.
And Councillor Bourrier, a second?
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, seconded by Councillor Bourrier. Be it resolved, the CEO's report number 2022-30 be received for information. And further, that council accepts the proposal submitted by Probidity Municipal Consulting for the RFP numbered 2022-22 for Integrity Commissioner Services. And further, that the CEO provide a notice to E4M terminating our agreement with their firm as the Town Integrity Commissioner as of December 12th, 2022. And further, that an agreement of this copy be sent to Probidity Municipal Consulting, Chris Ray, for the provision of providing Integrity Commissioner services for a 2-year term commencing on December 12th, 2022. And is that all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
And yeses all around, so that carries. And I'll thank the gentleman for showing up this evening. So thank you, and Chris, we look forward to working with you and hopefully not using you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on now to that will be now 7D, CEO's report regarding the 2022 municipal election advanced voting day. CEO has suggested Saturday, October 15th as the advanced voting day for this election. Is there any problems with that?
None for me.
Nope. None for me.
Okay, Councillor McDonald, can I get a move on that?
Yes.
Councillor Despatie, a second?
Yes.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Despatie. Be it resolved, the CEO's report number 2022-31 be received for information. And further, that council resolves to enact bylaw number 2022-22 on September 12th, 2022 to further establish advanced voting day on Saturday, October 15th, 2022. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Carried. Okay, next we have CEO's report E7E, update regarding the 911 authority service agreement. Is there any comments on that? Councillor Bourrier, can I get a first?
Yes.
Councillor Gingras, a second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Bourrier, seconded by Councillor Gingras. Be it resolved, the CEO's report number 2022-32 be received for information. And further, that council resolves to enact bylaw 2022-24 on September 12th to accept the executed next generation 911 authority service agreement with Bell Canada. All in favor?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Moving on, CEO's report regarding request for quotation engineering services for McDonald Street reconstruction. Any comments or questions on that one?
Sorry.
Okay, so Councillor McDonald, can I get a first on that?
Yes.
Councillor Despatie, a second?
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Despatie. Be it resolved, the CEO's report 2022-33 be received for information. And further, that council accepts the proposal from RV Anderson Associates Limited for engineering services and road design for the McDonald Street reconstruction project in the amount of $47,500.00 plus HST. And further, that this would not exclude RV Anderson from bidding on the construction administrative services for this project. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Okay, this is just to accept the minutes as presented. Minutes and reports 7H to M as presented. So Councillor Gingras first.
Yes.
Councillor Bourrier, second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier. Be it resolved that the following minutes and reports 7H to M be accepted as presented. H, Municipal Superintendent's Report to Council, September 8th, 2022. I, Township of Nairn and Hyman Bank Reconciliation, April 2022. Or 20, yeah. J, Township of Nairn and Hyman Summary Write-Off, Summary of Tax Write-Offs, August 3rd, 2022. K, Community Parks and Recreation Committee Minutes, July 25th, 2022. L, Ontario Clean Water Agency, June 2022 Work Order Summary Report, and M, Recreation Committee Town Council Report. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Okay, and now we have the motion to one more here under minutes and reports. Well, I guess if there's any, is there any comments on any of those further on any of the further minutes and reports after the McDonald Street, any of those? Because I do have one more motion regarding to that, but if there was any other comments on the other ones.
I have none.
No.
Okay, so this is the Parks and Recreation Committee's request to pull $500 from recreation reserves for miscellaneous expenses. Councillor Despatie, can I get a first?
Yes.
Councillor McDonald, a second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Despatie, second by Councillor McDonald. Whereas council notes the Township of Nairn and Hyman Recreation Parks, Community Parks and Recreation Committee Resolution 2022 Rec-21, and therefore be it resolved that the committee's request to pull $500 from the recreation reserve from miscellaneous expenses be granted. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Okay, I think that's it under minutes and reports. We'll move to correspondences now. This is just to note the correspondences as being received. Councillor Gingras first.
Yes.
Councillor Bourrier, second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier. Be it resolved that the correspondences A to B be noted as received. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Okay. So we'll move on. Correspondence 8A. Is there any questions on that Ministry of Indigenous Affairs regarding Crown land withdrawn from mining staking during negotiations with Whitefish River First Nation?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Probably through you, Mr. Chair, to our CAO. I was just wondering if Whitefish Lake First Nations land is, I believe it does come this far, and if there's any potential exploration sites in our township that would be affected by this particular item. Sorry, that's my train.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can
Yeah, go ahead.
attempt to answer that.
Okay.
I did do some exploring on this link that was provided through this letter. Unfortunately, the link does not work. But we were able to find a helper at the M&R that helped us navigate to what we needed to find out. So I did have a map. Unfortunately, the map was so detailed, our limited technology printer would not print it. But basically it highlighted the area almost completely around the township of Nairn.
You've got to be kidding, is that right?
But we have to remember that this is discussing Crown land. So we were able to find the order, the Mining Act RSO order that goes along with this, and it basically it says pursuant to subsection 35(1) of the Mining Act, the minister may by order signed by him or her withdraw from prospecting, mining claim registration, sale and lease any lands, mining rights or service rights that are the property of the Crown, and the lands, mining rights or surface rights shall remain withdrawn until reopened by the minister. So it did highlight a large area, not just around our community, Espanola as well. There wasn't too much highlighted in the Sand Bay area, if I recall correctly. But we were assured through this letter that if there was any claims that were substantial, that we'd be contacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Belinda.
Okay. There's nothing else on that item. We do have a motion regarding the correspondence from MP Hughes, and that will fall under motions 9A. So if there's any comments on that, the letter from MP Hughes. Okay, no comments. From what I can hear, so I'll go to the motion 9A, Township of Nairn and Hyman regarding electoral boundary changes for Northern Ontario. Councillor Gingras, can I get a first on that? Councillor Bourrier, a second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier, whereas the Electoral Boundary Commission has proposed to move one of its electoral ridings from Northern Ontario. Whereas the proposal to diminish Northern Ontario's voice in Parliament will have detrimental effects on the participatory democracy and regional development, as the issues in Northern Ontario are significantly different than the issues facing the urban South. Whereas the Federal Boundary Commission proposal to cut representation in the North is contrary to the 2017 electoral boundary changes for Ontario that recognizes the need to add 2 seats to ensure fair participation from Northern residents. Whereas many of the existing ridings in Northern Ontario are already larger than many European countries, a situation that will only be worsened by the addition of massively new regions to service. Whereas the proposed new super ridings will force municipalities to compete for a limited amount of riding funding, which will further exacerbate inequalities in the North. Whereas Northern Ontario's population per riding is already much higher than any other rural and isolated region in Canada's North. And whereas the courts have ruled that representation in Canada's democracy is not based merely on population, but on the regions of interest and the rights of citizens to engage with their elected representatives. And whereas any change to the electoral boundaries should be based on the principle of maintaining communities of interest within boundaries that are equitable in terms of population and geography. Now, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Nairn and Hyman calls on the Electoral Boundary Commission to maintain the electoral representation of Northern Ontario and ensure that boundary changes are done in a manner that responds to regional and local needs. All in favor?
Yes.
And that carries. Okay, next is 9B, Town of Kingsville, opposition to Bill 3, Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022. Councillor McDonald, the first.
Yeah.
Councillor Despatie, a second.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Despatie. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the Township of Nairn and Hyman endorses and supports the resolution of the Town of Kingsville opposing Bill 3, Strong Mayor Building Homes Act 2022, introduced by the Government of Ontario through the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, that would amend various statutes with respect to special powers and duties of heads of council. And further, the Council of the Township of Nairn and Hyman agrees with the Town of Kingsville's resolution that these changes are deemed necessarily in large single-tier municipalities such as Ottawa and Toronto, that such changes should not be implemented in smaller municipalities. And further, that if the stated goal of this legislation is to construct more housing in Ontario, that this can be accomplished through the means of amending the Planning Act and funding of more affordable housing. And that a copy of this motion be sent to Premier Doug Ford, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Town of Kingsville. All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to bylaws now. This is for bylaw 10A for the advanced voting bylaw. So Councillor Bourrier first.
Yes.
Councillor Gingras second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Bourrier, second by Councillor Gingras. Be it resolved that a bylaw to provide for advanced votes to be held prior to the voting day be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council, and its number shall be 2022-2022. All in favor? Yeah. Sounds good, and that is carried. Okay, moving on now to 10B, appoint Phoenix Emergency Management Logic for the Community Emergency Management Coordinator. Councillor Despatie, first.
Yes.
Councillor McDonald, the second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Despatie, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Be it resolved that being a bylaw to appoint Phoenix Energy Management Logic to provide emergency management services, including services as Community Emergency Management Coordinator, be read a first, second, and third time, and its number, and it finally passed an open council, and its number shall be 2022-23. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Carried. Okay. This is the Bell Canada 911. Councillor Gingras first.
Yes.
Councillor Bourrier is second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier. Be it resolved that being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Nairn and Hyman to enter into a service agreement with Bell Canada for the provision of next generation 911 service be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council, and its number shall be 2022-24. All in favor?
Yeah.
And that carries. Okay, moving on now to the bylaw regarding animal control. Is there any comments on that? I think we discussed it a couple of meetings ago. So Councillor Gingras first.
Yes.
Councillor Bourrier a second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier. Be it resolved that being a bylaw for the licensing and requiring the registration of dogs and cats for their control and keeping of dogs and cats and other animals within the corporation of the Township of Nairn and Hyman be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council, and its number shall be 2022-23. All in favor? And that is carried. We now have the being a bylaw to amend bylaw.
Oh, sorry. Do we, I believe we have a wrong number. One second.
2023, but it's actually 24, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, just, it was just it was just read wrong. The number was 22, 25.
Yeah, that's what I have, 25. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so we have the bylaw number 2022-26 as discussed earlier with the Planning Act. And we will, I assume, both the drawing touched that. We'll amend that.
Just was going to show you, Mr. Mayor, what was amended.
Okay. Yeah.
Does the rest of the council want to see what was amended?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
it's soft.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the being a bylaw to amend by bylaw 2013-5. So Councillor McDonald the first.
Yeah.
And Councillor Despatie a second.
Yeah.
Be it resolved that being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2013-5 be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in an open council. Its number shall be 2022-26. All in favor? And that carries. I'm just going to sign the official bylaw here. Okay.
To show you the amended for the next bylaw as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And we just have a couple more here. So this is being a bylaw to adopt the official plan amendment. So Councillor Gingras first.
Yeah.
Councillor Bourrier second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Gingras, second by Councillor Bourrier. Be it resolved that being a bylaw to adopt the official plan amendment number 5 for the Township of Nairn and Hyman be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council, and its number shall be 2022-27. All in favor?
Yeah.
And that carries. Move on now to for information only. This is just to note them as received. Councillor Despatie, you first.
Yes.
Councillor McDonald, the second. So that's moved by Councillor Despatie, second by Councillor McDonald. Be it resolved, the for information only item 11A be noted as received. All in favor?
Yes.
And carried. Okay, this is the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Bourrier first.
Yes.
Councillor Gingras second.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor Bourrier, second by Councillor Gingras, that being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Nairn and Hyman be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council, and its number shall be 2022-28. All in favor? And that's carried. And our closing bylaw, I do want to note that we are, if council's wishes are to pass this the day to change the meeting. As some of you know, the second Monday of October falls on Thanksgiving Monday, so we would usually do the meeting on the third Monday of the month. But I had requested to advance the day if that is council's wishes, to the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, just to give enough time, because this is the last meeting for this term of council. So I just wanted to give enough time between the meeting day and election day, if that's council's wishes. So the next meeting would be on the 11th day of October, if that's good for everyone.
Yes, sir, that's a good idea, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so Mr. Despatie, can I get a first?
Yes,
Mr. McDonald, the second. Moved by Councilor Despatie, second by Councilor McDonald, that the meeting is September 12th, do now adjourn at 8:40 p.m. and to meet again on the 11th day of October 2022, or at the call of the mayor. All in favor?
yeah.
And that looks like it's carried. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for putting up with the technological difficulties. But thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.